Hello and welcome to Star Corner. I thought you might like to join me for an experiment today. I have a problem which I'm trying to overcome, and that's how do I keep my solid fuel Rayburn going when I pop out. Currently I heat my room up using the Rayburn, and I just use pallet wood. Pallet wood is fantastic, it's free, it's quite readily available here in Norfolk, and we just go and find some pallets, chop it up, and that will keep me nice and toasty throughout the day. But when I pop out, I don't really want to leave pallet wood in the Rayburn. It doesn't last that long, and obviously I don't want to leave my home with a big boring fire. So I want to run an experiment today, and the experiment is using these Lekto wood fuel blocks. So this is a compressed block of hardwood, which has been kindly sent to me by Lekto Wood Fuels, and I'd like to see how long that can keep going for. So I've currently got my Rayburn to a state where there's a nice base to it, a nice glowing base, and I'm going to pop one of these in and keep checking on it every half an hour. And every half an hour I'm going to see if I can light a piece of kindling. Lekto also sent me some kindling as well. So currently it is 16.4 degrees centigrade in this room, and I'm going to pop it in, set the alarm, and come back and check on it in half an hour. So the first half an hour is up, and it's time to have a look inside the Rayburn firebox. Interestingly, the temperature has gone up. It's now 17.1. The fan behind me is still whirring away. Now the fan is generated by heat, so that's a really good sign. And I should just add about the settings of the experiment. So I have left the room exactly as it would be if I'd popped out. All the doors are closed. I haven't used the Rayburn to cook on, and so I've just left it, closed the doors, and just sat here waiting for half an hour. So it's exactly the conditions of me leaving the room. So now let's take a look. Wow, brilliant. That's still going. So that's half an hour later. You can see that the Lekto wood log, compressed log, is still going. And as per the rules of the experiment, I need to throw some kindling in, but obviously that's going to go up in flames, which is brilliant. So let me just pop that in. So this kindling was also sent to me by Lekto. Let's throw that in. There we go, straight up in flames. So join me in another half an hour and we'll see how it's going then. Should just add that this is still on bake as well. So I didn't mention earlier, but my Christmas cake is actually in there baking away. So fingers crossed it keeps going. Bye for now. So the next half an hour has passed, and we're now 1 hour into the experiment, and let's just check the conditions. The temperature has gone up again. It's now 17.6 degrees centigrade. As you can see behind me, the fan is still whirring away. It's going a bit slower now. The dial here is actually telling me that it's a bit warmer. So now the temperature is around 200 degrees centigrade, and it's sitting just on the edge of bake and roast. So now I've got my piece of kindling. Let's see what's happening in the firebox. So half an hour has passed since I last looked in the firebox. Just to recap on the experiment, I'm trying to solve the problem of me being able to pop out of the house and then come back sometime later and be able to start the Rayburn again quite easily, and to also keep the room warm. So the experiment is for me every half an hour to throw a bit of kindling on to see if it will light. So let's see what's happening now. Gosh, that's still going. It's got a really hot glow to it now. You can see that the log has now split into two, but it is still flaming, and obviously without a doubt if I throw that in, that will go up in flames. So that's an hour into the experiment and the Lekto compressed log is still quite a solid mass, and just to show you the gauge there, as you can see, that's sitting between bake and roast still. So that is going really, really well. Join me again in half an hour. Gosh, that felt like a quick half an hour. So another update. The fan behind me, the Rayburn fan, has now stopped. It's still 17.7 degrees, which I think actually has gone up by another little bit. So here is another piece of kindling, kindly supplied by Lekto wood fuels, and let's have a look in the... Before I open the firebox, let me just look at the dial here. Now, if you remember, previously, half an hour ago, the dial was sitting bang on in between roast and bake. So the temperature has now dropped slightly, and it's now comfortably sitting in bake, so my Christmas cake will be okay because it's still in the oven. And now let's have a look in the firebox. Brilliant. That is still glowing, very hot. Now here's my piece of kindling. So let me throw that in there whilst I'm still talking to see if that goes up in flames. Now whilst I'm doing this, I have been putting updates on Instagram, and Lekto Wood Fuels have contacted me to say that if I poked the log, it would go up in flames, but because the experiment is to see how long it will stay going for whilst I'm out the house, I don't want to start poking anything now, but I can feel the heat. That's still very, very hot. So I am confident that that piece of kindling is going to go up in flames. Let's check on it in another half an hour. It's only been 5 minutes since I put the last piece of kindling in, but I just wanted to see if it had gone up in flames. So let's have a very, very quick look. Oh yes, look, the kindling has gone straight up. So that's an hour and a half later, and the Lekto wood fuel compressed block is still going strong. Right, so it's 2 hours since the experiment started, and the experiment is seeing how long one of these Lekto wood fuels compressed logs would last for. The problem that I'm trying to overcome is how I can keep a solid fuel vintage Rayburn going when I go out. So sometimes I pop into Fakenham or I go for a dog walk, and it's not a nice feeling when you come back into the house and the house feels cold. So I wanted to see how long I could keep the Rayburn going by using one of these logs. So we're 2 hours into the experiment, so let's see how the firebox is looking now. I forgot to give you a temperature update too. So the temperature has started to drop. It's now 17.4. That's still quite warm. As I previously mentioned, the fan on top of the Rayburn has now stopped going round. You can see that the temperature is dropping now. It's just at the lower end of bake. So in half an hour, that's gone from the halfway point, so about 175 degrees, to possibly about 110. But this is the proof in the pudding. Let's see how this is looking. Okay. So there are no flames, but you can see that the Lekto log is still glowing. And let's throw a piece of kindling in to see what happens. I'm going to throw it right in there. There we go. I'm going to close the door for a few minutes to see if that goes up in flames. I forgot to give you a temperature update too. So the temperature has started to drop. It's now 17.4. That's still quite warm. I'm just checking on that last piece of kindling, and it doesn't look as though it's gone up in flames. So this is about 8 minutes after I put the piece of kindling in, but it's all glowing very, very hot, including the piece of kindling. And you can see now that the Lekto log has broken down even more. But gosh, I can tell you the heat is very, very warm still coming out of the firebox. 2.5 hours now since I put one of these Lekto compressed logs into my vintage Rayburn, and it has managed to keep the temperature going. It's 17.2 degrees centigrade, so it is dropping slightly now, and this temperature is also dropping, so this has now dropped into simmer, and so we're looking at just under 150 degrees centigrade there. So part of the experiment was to see how long I could keep this going for. So if I'd popped out, how long I could be out for, so that I could come back in and be able to fire up the Rayburn quite easily and to keep the room warm. So I think we'll conclude that experiment because 2.5 hours later I can feel that everything is cooling down. But let's just have one final look. So if you can just see in there are still hot embers going, and I think if I throw some kindling in now, which I'm about to do, so this is Lekto hardwood kindling, open the vent up just there and put another one of these logs on, I think that's going to fire up. We'll check on it in a few minutes. As you can see, the vintage Rayburn is all fired up again. So 2.5 hours after I put a Lekto compressed log into the Rayburn, I threw some more kindling in, added another log, and hey presto, we're all ready to go again, and the room is heating up already. So all that that leaves me to do is go and make myself a lovely cup of tea. Bye for now.